All right, guys, we're back here on a Wednesday afternoon out here in California. Late afternoon on the East Coast for some of you. We're going to get into I have it called the Deutsche Bank, but it's the Dell Technologies Championship 2017. We are at TPC Boston, obviously in Boston, Northeast. We've got bent grass greens this week and a little Keegan Bradley home cooking. Coming off last week, which was a great week for me and hopefully for you as well. It's a great week for Dustin Johnson, who was just underpriced on DraftKings. He was the most expensive guy on FanDuel, so I didn't have him there. But I had Hideki, and Hideki was like 70% owned in cash games. So that 9,400 price tag for him last week was just too cheap. He was the favorite, and I think people just gravitated toward that given his recent form. But maybe the pressure got to him. I don't know what happened with Hideki last week. He couldn't really putt, which isn't, out of the norm for him. But he was putting fine weeks before that. But that just shows you that putting is very volatile. A lot of these guys, if their irons are on, their irons are on. But their putters, if you're missing by an inch every time, well, that's a stroke, And if my proximity is 5 feet off on my irons, that I'm still hitting greens. So, something to keep in mind when you look at putting stats. And that's why it's good to, follow this stuff long term, because some of these guys are not good putters. Gary Woodland is a bad putter. Gary Woodland has a good putting week, well, I don't expect it to continue, and we saw that last week. Gary Woodland was back on my radar last week. He looked underpriced after his PGA performance, where he putted just decently. And then last week, just could not putt, So that's the way it goes sometimes with these guys. The putter's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the greens, sometimes it's not. Last week, those greens, everyone said these are, some of the purest greens that we play on, or that we have played on, because it was the first year they played there. And, for some of the elite guys, it showed. The best putters really competed. Russell Henley was still in the thick of things. He's a great putter, generally. Spieth, we saw him draining putts. He had the, I think, longest proximity, most distance of putts made. So he was draining them. DJ made a clutch putt on 18 to go to the playoff, an 18-footer, When these guys are making putts, the greens are generally going to be pure. They make the right read, except for, ball's got to get in the hole. So, starting, I've got it sorted by DK salary, I believe. And we're going to just start up the top. Jordan Spieth, good history here. I wouldn't call it elite, but he's good here. And we have to remember, too, a miscut here is, you probably really sucked that week because a larger percentage of the field, something like 70%, is going to get through this week because they're narrowing it down for the FedEx playoffs. This is our last cut event of the year. So, that being said, there's still a cut in play this week. Next week, or 2 weeks from now, I think they take a week off. There will not be a cut in place. But Spieth, this is a ball striker's course. Obviously, putting will help make up for an average approach game or week, and being good around the green will help that. But it's generally the approach game and off the tee that is really going to get you there this week. Off the tee, it's not really huge to be long. I've seen a lot of stats that say that driving distance is really important this week. But, for a lot of these guys that keep the ball in the fairway and get the job done, like Kuchar, we'll see has, decent history here. Zach Johnson has decent history here. Webb has a win here. Some of these guys that just kind of get the ball in the fairway and do their thing, they play their game, which is not a Bombers game. They still can compete here too. So it's not to say that these guys need to be hitting the ball a mile, but it helps for sure. But like I said, off the tee, if you're gaining strokes, you're gaining strokes. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So off the tee, Spieth has been very good recently. Last 12 rounds, all these stats are last 12 rounds. He's gaining strokes on par fours. My issues with the par threes and par fives, there's going to be 3 par fives this week. That's more eagle opportunities for guys like DJ, guys like Finau, guys like Johnny Vegas. So Spieth is definitely in play this week, as he always is. It's just the salary. DJ and Spieth are up at 12K, and the rest of these guys are down in the tens. If I had to lean one to win, it would be DJ. He's riding the win that he went out and won. He didn't lose, or Spieth didn't lose that playoff. DJ went out there and won it. I mean, he carried a lake 310 yards with his driver. That's absurd. So, if you want a ball striker, DJ is going to be your guy this week, and he's even been putting better than Spieth recently. So I think DJ is your guy up there at the top. Not really sure about the FanDuel price in cash. I think he's I honestly don't know. I think he's a GPP play on FanDuel simply because if he wins, you need to have him. Whereas with Spieth, I don't know if he wins this week, and for me, it's just a matter of who I think has the better chance of winning. I think DJ has the better chance of winning. I'd be overweight on DJ compared to Spieth. But that said, I think a lot of people are going to ride DJ's win too, so maybe you take Spieth. But I just don't see that being the way things play out this week. DK salary, Jon Rahm, 18-1. So Jon Rahm played really well last week. He putted really well, which is kind of out of the... Jon Rahm's not known as an elite putter. He's never played here before, but the course seems to fit him. If you're taking the Bombers narrative especially. His approach game recently hasn't been stellar, but last week he was fine, and we know Jon Rahm can hit the ball a mile. My issue is with Jon Rahm, the price tag at 10.6. Could Jon Rahm go win? Yes, sure. He's a GPP play. 9K on FanDuel is very appealing, but there's some other guys at 9K on FanDuel that we'll get to that I think have been playing better for longer and have some history we can go off of. That said, I think Jon Rahm is a great GPP play on FanDuel where he'll probably go under-owned just because of the other guys in that area. So if you wanted to start like DJ Rahm, I think DJ is a little chalky, but Rahm will be contrarian. I think if you really want to get kind of contrarian at the top, you could start with JT and Rahm. JT seems to go under-owned every week just because his name recognition isn't quite there, despite him winning a major. And you'd probably say that Hideki and Rory and Ricky and DJ and Spieth are better than than JT and Rahm. That's probably a fair assessment. But JT's been playing just as well recently. So really you can't argue with that. JT's history is not great here, but this season he's been a different animal. So I really like JT this week, and I think I will have a GPP exposure to a JT Rahm combo at the top because they'll be low owned, I think. And I think they have just as much upside as one of these other guys. And if you have a 70% Hideki missed the cut, you're looking pretty good. The issue is kind of the way the salaries break down. You could have a 9,000 Paul Casey go out and win, and he's going to be chalk, so you're still kind of fucked. But that's the way it goes with all these guys being so damn good at golf. So JT, I like JT this week. I think he'll go really under-owned on DraftKings just because of the salary and the odds, but, GPP starter, why not? Hideki missed the cut last week. I don't really know about Hideki this week. I think he burned a lot of people, and he might go under-owned. And he has good history here. He's trending up, but again, the putter is so bad last week. And I did want to take a quick look to see what Hideki was up to last week. Some ownership projections for FanDuel. If you want to screenshot these at some point. Like I said, I think JT 14%, Rom 12%. A lot of these guys are going to go under own Spieth. Yeah, Spieth is going to go low. Harold Varner I like for a GPP option. We'll get there. But if I'm going to go straight off the top, who was I looking up? Oh, Hideki. Nope. Not Tanahara. Yeah, last week, man, the ball striking fell off a little bit. Putting fell off a little bit. He just wasn't quite there. And, sure, Hideki, when he's not quite there, can come back the next week and, do perfectly well. But when the putter goes, it tends to go. And right now, he was trying out a bunch of different putters last week, and I'm just not sold on him being a cash play for me. I'm just not. I don't know if the upside is there like it is with DJ or some other guys, but Hideki's going to be off my radar. I think he's a good GPP play in that regard. Rory, I thought he was going to kind of mail it in for the playoffs, but there's money to be won, and I think Rory's motivated to go get a win somewhere along the line here. Rory has 2 wins and a 5th here. He's never missed a cut. Worst place, 47th, 37th, 29th. This course fits Rory really well, just like Quail Hollow did at the PGA. Issue there was that I think the course changed a lot, and Rory may have been playing the old Quail Hollow a lot, and mentally wasn't there. I don't really know what was up with Rory at the PGA. He couldn't putt, and his approach game has been pretty woeful, which I think here might be a problem for him. He's kind of been saving himself around the green, but, par 4 scoring not quite there. You're still going to need to make a lot of birdies on par 4s to compete for a win here, and right now Rory's just not really doing that, so I'll probably stay away again this week, and at 9.8, that's really tempting for him. I love him for GPPs in that regard. Just he's too cheap for what he's done here and what he can do here. Ricky Fowler has a win here. Has some rough performances in the past. 2 miscuts. But, really, I just don't see him. Ricky could go win this week. Ricky could also finish 20th this week. I really like Ricky this week. My worry is that his putter has kind of been keeping the approach game floating. But I think Ricky's just as good of a play as any of these guys up here. He's going to be pretty chalky. I think 9K on FanDuel is chalk Ricky territory. It's also chalk Paul Casey territory, which, when you compare them, you think Ricky is way better than Paul Casey, just because of the way Ricky's been priced all year and kind of the way he gets talked up. But Paul Casey has been pretty much an elite ball striker. Leading in approach. He's gaining 5 to 6 strokes approach every week. His putting just holds him back, and Ricky is an elite putter. I think if Ricky gets the ball striking going this week, Ricky is in contention. But, Paul Casey, it's the same story. Paul Casey, and the only reason I'm skipping Louis and Day Wright at this moment is because I'm talking about 2 guys that are in the same price tag. I don't mean to jump around. But, if we go look at Paul Casey last week, when he's average with the putter, he kills it. Those numbers are popping off the board. But, yeah. If he has an average putting week, and he had one last year, he will finish in the top 5. Paul Casey's irons aren't going anywhere right now. They're dialed the fuck in. I like Paul Casey a lot. Everyone does. And I expect him to be like 70% owned in DK Cash again this week. But if you're looking at Ricky, I mean, Ricky's gaining strokes putting too. I mean, you're getting to the same point two different ways. So I also don't mind starting a cash lineup with Ricky and Paul Casey. I don't know if you need to, but if you're not sold on like Johnny Vegas at 5.5 as your like bottom feeder, you can go there. You get some savings on Ricky too. I mean, 16-1 is nice. Rory 16-1 is 9.5. Do I think they have the same chance to win this week? Sure. So you're getting savings with Ricky, but he's going to be chalk. Jason Day at 9,400. His history here is the best the best like full sample out of the field by far. Plays here every year. He second, third, 7th, 12th, 15th, 13th, 19th. Only one finish outside of the top 19. You just look at that and you think safety, safety, safety. Jason Day is going to be mega chalk on DraftKings 9,500. I will be starting my cash lineup with Jason Day. No reason not to. 9,400 on FanDuel. I think I also want to start my FanDuel cash lineup with Jason Day. I generally play two cash lineups, just to get different exposure to different guys that I like. I like more than 8 guys every week. And it's really hard to narrow them down. So I'm just going to play multiple combinations for the best. So Jason Day, 9,400, 9,500. I'm going to start my lineups with him on both sides. He's just been so good here that I really don't see that changing with the way he's been trending. He's been trending upward every week for the past month, and we thought he was kind of out of things, and he's right back. He's focused. He's making the end of the year run, and I love to see that. So, given his history here, he doesn't have a win, but he could get one this week. A bunch of people that are very sharp are picking him to win, so I like that play a lot. Afternoon coffee. Getting that in. Louis. Louis is a lock in FanDuel Cash at 8,100. I love Louis this week. Off the tee, he hasn't been, killing it, but approach game, around the green putting, scoring, Louis is right there. Louis has stellar history here with a 2nd, a 12th, and an 8th. This course fits his ball striking personality very well. He's found the irons. He's back in form after, really he wasn't out of form. He just had a bad British Open, which, Royal Birkdale is not really the best course for him, I don't think. So I really like Louis this week. He's in play on both sites, but on FanDuel, he's a total steal at 8,100. I don't really need to say too much more about that. Paul Casey leading the field tee to green, and that basically is ball striking minus around the green. Or tee to green is basically ball striking plus around the green. So if you're an elite around the green player, or you're an elite scrambler, or your short game is elite, you're going to gain more strokes tee to green despite maybe not being so good off the tee or being so good approach. If you look at Paul Casey's numbers, his approach game has literally been so good that even his around the green game and off the tee game not being so strong is first in the field last 12 rounds. That is how good Paul Casey's irons have been. Now, and that translates to scoring. You don't have to be a great putter if you're dialed in. You have to make some putts, but you're not going to be making bogeys out here if you are getting the ball close on your approaches. Like, you're not going to be making bogeys unless you're Finau or Gary Woodland or Keegan Bradley, all of whom are interesting this week. So, Paul Casey is going to be super chalk on DraftKings. Now, I can start a lineup with Day, Louis, Casey, and one of these 8K guys, and feel very comfortable with them. Am I going to do that? I don't know yet. It depends. There's a few options you can go with because I like a lot of guys in this 8K range, low 9K range, this week. So I really like Paul Casey, but on FanDuel, he's the same price as Ricky, and I think Ricky is a better overall player, you know. So it's hard for me because if Paul Casey just has a really bad putting week, but he hasn't had really bad putting weeks, so you got to weigh these things. Ideally, I would play like Day, Ricky, and Casey and just fit them all. But I don't. It's tough because I like a lot of the 8K guys this week too, and I don't know if I want to just pass them all up just to pile in these 9K guys when I think there's the same upside there. I honestly do. I really, really like some of these 8K guys, and I think they're going to finish just as well as Ricky and Casey this week. So, maybe you do play Ricky, Day, and Casey, but right now that's not kind of how I'm leaning. I'm leaning toward probably just playing Ricky over Casey, and, hoping for the best right now. The ownership projection was Casey over Ricky, but they're literally the same, basically 1% off. So take that for what it's worth. And that honestly leans me to try to play both of them in cash. And I think given some of these 8K guys, lower ownerships, I think that's a strategy that a lot of people like to take this week, and I think I might just take it too. But I do want Louis in there. I really like the way Louis sets up. Kuchar's just a safe play. I don't think Kuchar misses the cut here. He never has. He's also, he's basically going to finish in the top 30. And I think people are going to overlook him. But I don't know if he doesn't have the allure that Paul Casey does right now. But Kuchar's just been getting it done with his short game, as he tends to. The problem with Kuchar that I have this week is I see him finishing 20th rather than 10th. And when you're looking for upside, you really want that, the upside that I think Casey brings to you this week over Kuchar. Now, Kuchar's super safe, but this is a ball striker's course, and he hasn't been striking the ball right now very well. Now, he still gets the job done because he is so good around the greens and putting. So I think there's plenty of merit to playing Kuchar this week, and he will be lower owned than these guys. I just don't know what his upside is this week. I mean, I feel like we've been saying that all year, and he's just been top 10ing all year. So, I mean, I think Kuchar is a great play this week again. It's just that he's not going to have the ownership, and if the chalk hits like it has been and you play Kuchar and he finishes below them, you're going to be kind of SOL. So there's that, and that's a little worrisome for me. Brooks this week doesn't have great history here, and with his kind of performance last week, I really don't know how much I'm going to be on him this week. I really don't. I'm probably just not going to play any of them and hope it doesn't burn me. But Brooks hasn't been killing it as of late, so yeah, I'll probably just overlook Brooks this week and hope it doesn't burn me. But yeah, I think I'd rather play Kuchar than Brooks, to be honest. And that sounds crazy in my head, but Brooks just hasn't been finishing the way Kuchar has over the last few weeks. And Kuchar's history has been so good too that it's hard for me to overlook that. 46th last year, maybe he finishes that again, but I don't really think it happens just the way he's been in form. Kevin Chappell, I love this week. I think Kevin Chappell top 10s again like he did last week. Kevin Chappell, ball striking around the green has been so solid. Putting has kind of been a little problematic for him, but if he has a good putting week, he'll be in the top 10. So I like Kevin Chappell a lot. I'm not sure that's 8,600 price tag. I think I like Patrick Reed more for 100 less. If I'm being perfectly honest, but I really like Kevin Chappell. 6,700 is a steal. Kevin Chappell should probably be like 70% owned in FanDuel Cash this week, and I will be eating that chalk all day. I'm just really sold on Kevin Chappell this week, given his run of form and his recent history here of 8th and 12th. Patrick Reed has been solid as of late. Also, he's gaining strokes. He's not gaining strokes a lot in one area like Paul Casey is, but he's gaining like 1 to 3 strokes kind of every week in every area. And that's really what I like to see. He's been putting really well, as he normally does. His irons are back, which they were not at the beginning of the year. His around the green game is fine, and he's been good off the tee. There's really nothing wrong with Patrick Reed's game this week, and 5th, 4th, last 2 times out here. I'll overlook the 74th and the 70th. Patrick Reed has become a better golfer over the last 3 years, so I'm fine with that. And just given the run of form that he's on with the PGA and last week, I'll be playing Patrick Reed in cash, probably on both sites. Not really sure about DraftKings yet. There's a combination. There's a 2v2 that I'm debating, and I'm not sure where I'm taking that. But FanDuel, I really like Patrick Reed. This is what I'm saying. Like, I think I like Patrick Reed just as much as I like Ricky and Paul Casey this week. Now, there's just a price difference between them, so if I want to bolster my lineup in the 6Ks with a lot of these FanDuel guys that I like, I don't see a reason to have to force in Ricky or Casey when I like Patrick Reed, when I like Louis just as much for cheaper. I can avoid taking punts in the 5K range if I take guys in the 8K range that I'm very comfortable with. So that's, I think, what I'm going to do in one of my lineups. The other one, I might do the day Casey Fowler and kind of see how it goes. Maybe I'll play it lighter. So we'll see. And I'll see how that goes throughout the week. But so if you take the day Casey Fowler approach, you better nail your 5K guys. You better nail your low 6K guy, who I think I have nailed this week. But you better be nailing those guys. And, you can play Jason Kokrak at 4,800 if you want, but then you're still sacrificing the 8K and 7K guys, and you're just loading up in the 6Ks. So that being said, Kokrak never the most consistent guy, so I don't really like to play him. But I'm not talking about him yet. Patrick Reed, though, really like him. Sergio opened the week at like 55-1, and that, people hammered that. Now he's down to 40-1. That's probably where he should be, to be honest. After the Masters, kind of just like 30th, 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 blah, 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 all the time. That's fine with me. But at the PGA, Sergio just went into like don't give a fuck mode, and it was like pretty obvious. He would hit a bad shot and just kind of be like meh. And I don't like my guy to be angry, but I like him to show some fight and bring it back, and find the game. And right now, it's tough because Patrick Reed is in form, and we know this. And he's 100 more than Sergio. If I had to pick one to win, it would be Patrick Reed. I don't know what Sergio's been up to, but, it just seems like ever since he won the Masters, like, sure, he, riding a hot streak, you're going to want to keep it up, but also at the same token, Sergio not known as a, misser of cuts. He's an elite player. Everyone knows this. But, so 8,900 on FanDuel, probably not going to be playing him there. 8,400 on DraftKings, this is where I'm getting in the 2v2. The rest of my lineup is filled out, but then I'm looking at Sergio and Cantlay or Reed and Finau, and flip a coin, man. Like, I think I would probably right now I'm leaning playing the Reed and Finau combination heavier, but Cantlay is really really intriguing, which makes me want some Cantlay this week. More than I want Finau, especially after Finau's like terrible Sunday. If he plays like that, he's missing the cut. He's finishing last. So um, there's a lot of merit to playing Sergio. He's an elite player and he's underpriced on DraftKings. But and he has good history here too. But maybe in years past too, he's just kind of like shown up and played here. That maybe I don't know what his past form coming into this event has been, but I feel like it's been very good. Just kind of knowing Sergio. Sorry, I was noticing something. Just knowing what his kind of history is at pretty much every course. So Charlie Hoffman has a win here, but he also has some like relatively not good performances. A miscut in the 64th, but overall Jesus Christ, Charlie Hoffman plays very well here. He's 100 more than Webb Simpson on both sites, which is interesting. Charlie wasn't killing it last week until the final round, and his final round basically won me all the money in cash because if he didn't basically kill it in that final round, I was fucked. Big, 5 under day was great for me. And if I had to take him over Webb this week, I probably would, just because his ball striking has been better. And he's been scoring on the longer holes. He's been better on par fours, but I really like Charlie and Webb. Charlie has a President's Cup spot to play for, which is big motivation. I think he keeps his momentum up this week. But I like Webb too. Webb hasn't finished worse than like 35th in like 5 straight tournaments. I really like that. His approach game and around the green, putting game, everything has been super solid for Webb. Nothing suggests to me that he'll go out and miss the cut like he did last year. Webb also had a bad fucking year last year. So when I've been looking at Webb's course history for basically every course recently, it's kind of like last year, okay, Webb sucked, but like Webb sucked last year, so whatever, it's fine. I don't mind that. We know that. So if it comes down to playing Webb or Charlie, which it has in some of my cash builds, I don't mind saving the $100 and just taking Webb and not having to go find $100 to go to Hoffman. I don't think that's a big difference. That's not like a Ryan Moore to Patrick Cantlay for me right now. That's not a Russell Henley to Keegan Bradley for me right now. So that being said, I think Webb and Charlie are both chalky, almost lock plays in FanDuel Cash, but the way my lineups are being built, I like the upside of a Louis. Chappell's a better play than both of them, in my opinion. Casey, Fowler, Day, Louis, Reed. I want one of those guys before I'd drop into the 7Ks to try to find some extra money to get both of these 7K guys. Justin Rose this week is going to be a very interesting play. He terrifies the shit out of me. His history here is not good. But he led the field in approach last week. He gained like 10 strokes on approach. Do I think he does that again? No. Do I think he found something in his game? Maybe. Do I also think he changed his swing a little bit because he had a hurt back? Yes. Now, Rose this week really intrigues me because of all of those things I just mentioned. Finished 4th last week. But when you look at his performances here in the past, he just hasn't been good. The problem with Rose is that we know he's a world-class player, and his price is down. Now, FanDuel 7,900, I don't think I'm sold there. 8,100 on DraftKings, that's a good value. Would I rather take Webb? Honestly, maybe. When I look at it, Webb has just been better recently. And history here isn't as good, but I would rather have Charlie, honestly, than probably Webb or Rose. And DraftKings, I think it's a little easier to find that $200 just because of the kind of tight pricing in the 7K range. DraftKings, I think, should spread out the pricing a little more, which would really make things interesting. They just haven't done it. really as well. I really like the way FanDuel prices people because you kind of end up finding guys in certain ranges. Like, you have to make a choice as to how you want to build lineups, whereas DraftKings, I think, you could just play the same lineup with a different guy at 7K and play the same 5 with 3 different guys and hope one of the 7K guys hits. I don't really like doing that. I like trying to figure out the best combination to give me the most floor and upside, and that's what FanDuel allows me to do. Same with NBA. I don't like the multi-positional eligibility, but we'll talk about that when NBA comes around. I plan on still doing semi-daily breakdowns. I'll probably do like 10-minute, 15-minute breakdowns maybe every day on NBA or maybe once every other day, 3 times a week. We'll get to that. NBA was good to me last year. But, Rose, that history is just bad, and that worries me. And coming into this tournament before, I always look to see, what was this guy's form coming into these tournaments in years past. Rose had a year where he came in on like 3 top 10s and just like sucked. I was just like, okay. Like, so the year that Rose finished 16th here, I do want to go take a look at that quick because that's the one where if you're looking at it, you're like, okay, if he's playing like he is now coming into that tournament, then fine. But so like Dell last year, 20th, 20th, 31st, you're probably thinking Rose is going to be fine. No. Well, 57th, he's fine, but he's not playing great. 2015, this is what I was talking about. 2nd, 27th, 6th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 16th miscut. Like, what the fuck, man? 15 he didn't play. 14 he played, right? No, that was 15. 14 he didn't play. That's the slash. 13. Yeah. Finished 2nd of the Northern Trust. Came in here. Finished 16th. Now, Justin Rose last week did not get any strokes. I mean, yeah. I think Justin Rose makes the cut this week. I'd say he finishes around like 30th. I don't think Justin Rose gains like 10 strokes on approach again. He could, but we don't know. I think he's fine. I don't think he misses the cut, but I don't know what his upside here is. Just the way he's performed here in the past. So there's that. Gary Woodland screwed everyone last week. He has good history here, but I won't be playing him because I just have a mental block about paying that price for Gary Woodland. On DraftKings, FanDuel, he might get a little popular given the history, but again, so bad at putting, I can't go there. Adam Scott, pure ball striker, amazing history here. I'll be playing Adam Scott in cash on DraftKings. FanDuel, I think I'd rather just take the savings and pay for Reed and Louie. Adam Scott just had a kid. And like we saw with DJ in the past, I can't say it's like we saw because we don't know the cause, but, babies take time. I don't have any, but I know they do. I know people that have had kids. They say, oh, I have no time to do anything because I'm taking care of my fucking kid all the time. Well, Adam Scott was probably taking care of his fucking kid for the past week and a half and hasn't been playing that much golf. That's what I would imagine. But 7,900 is a steal for a guy of his caliber and his history here, and I'll take that. I'll ride it. So he's fine for me this week. Duffner, I honestly haven't looked into too much how Duffner's been doing lately, just because he's not a guy I play too often. He's a terrible putter. That's basically all there is to it. Last week, I don't know what happened with the putter, but his ball striking fell off, which is interesting to me because I expect like Wyndham Duffner, not Northern Trust Duffner. I mean, these are two different players if we look at them. This looks like a bad ball striking Jordan Spieth round, and this looks like a typical Jason Duffner round for the PGA, typical Jason Duffner. So I really don't know what to make of Duffner this week. I mean, at the Dell, he tends to not be a great putter, but ball striking is all right. I just don't know what his upside is again this week. If he has a great putting week again, so be it. But Duffner, obviously, when you look at these numbers, not known as a great putter. Um, you know, in fact, last week, Jason Duffner's best putting week in the last 5 years. That's regression. He's going to regress. It's going to happen. He's not going to putt that well again. Just don't see it happen. So there's that. I wouldn't expect that to continue unless his ball striking picks up, which it could, but I'm not going to bet on that. Kisner, just been average lately. I'm going to fade Kisner this week. Ryan Moore just had another bad putting week last week. He just isn't getting the job done overall right now because his putting has been so bad. History here, up and down, so if you wanted to take a GPP shot, I wouldn't mind it, but he played really poorly on Sunday last week. Don't like to see that. Leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Berger, decent recently. Don't mind him. Off the tee, not great. Putting, can't really make up for it. I see like a 40th place for Berger. Don't love him. And the price, like, I don't see the need to pay it. Ches has just been hot recently, and if you wanted to ride that, he finished second here before, missed the cut last year, but Ches wasn't the same player last year as he is right now. He's continued this iron play on throughout the year. His odds have dropped. I forgot to update them. He is now 100-1, same as Keegan Bradley. I think he's actually 110, if I wanted to be more exact. But, Ches, tee to green recently, been better than Keegan. Putting been also better, so I don't know. It's a tough call on FanDuel, 5,900, Ches or Keegan. If you wanted to take a quick look at them in a vacuum, you got Ches. I'll probably play neither of these guys in DK Cash, but on FanDuel, they're both decent value in my opinion. I mean, Ches gaining strokes putting is not something I'm so used to, but he's been a good putter recently. Ball striking has been good for him recently too. So I can figure a 30th, I would say, for Ches this week. I like him a lot. He's just been playing really well, and I really don't see that like falling off to the point of a missed cut this week out of nowhere. I really don't. When he competed for the win here was 2011, so that's not going to be in the database. But he's been playing better than these stats, and I definitely like Ches this week too. Keegan, though, has the history, and this is kind of the home narrative for Keegan. My issue with Keegan is just like he shot 10 over last week on Sunday, which really hurt him. Dropped him on the leaderboard a lot. His approach game has been very average recently. His putting has been bad. His off the tee game hasn't been as strong as it was during this run where he was performing really well. Then again, when he shows up here, he finds form ball striking. He finds his approach game. He finds his off the tee game. But in a lot of these years, he's come in I would argue, the same or better form. So if we go back and look, like 2015 Dell, Keegan coming in. Yeah, worst form, 25th. 2014. Pretty much worst form, 16th. So he seems to find something here with the putting especially that I like to see. But with Keegan and Ches, it's kind of a take your pick. I really don't prefer one or the other. I think Keegan will be more popular given the history, but I think Ches is just as good of a play if I'm being honest. Russell Henley will be a fade for me this week. Charles, I think he makes the cut. I don't see much upside for him this week. Bubba is really interesting because he does not have great history here. That much is obvious. But Bubba finished 10th last week, and it's just his approach game that has been really holding him back. His putting and his off the tee game have been, really good recently. but just approach just hasn't been good, and that's going to really hold him back here this week. You're not approach is my key stat. Like that is the key stat for me this week. So, for me, it's going to be hard to really like Bubba for upside when his approach game has been pretty bleh. There are other guys in this range that I like more. His putting has been good. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't know about him this week. He kind of worries me, just given the way his game has been all of this year. If we take a quick look at Bubba, I don't know who Bubba Dickerson is. Yeah, hasn't gained strokes on approach in like a month. Off the tee, he's been good. Putting, he's been good, but I have a hard time seeing, if the chipping goes, as we've seen here, if the chipping goes, Bubba's fucked. And past performances at the Dell, chipping hasn't really been there. Putting hasn't really been there either. Could he gain a lot of strokes off the tee here? Yes. But he hasn't gained, the 4 strokes off the tee pretty much all this year. And in the past, this was a regular thing for him. So I just think Bubba's whole game is a little not there right now, and I have a hard time really loving playing Bubba this week. If you land on him, I think it's fine on FanDuel, especially 6,400. I think is a very fair price. His odds are good. People know what kind of course this is, and they've seen his form. 17th miscut 10th. That 10th is interesting. Last week, because he's basically playing to stay in each tier of the playoffs. He made it last week because of his performance, and he can do the same again this week. So I don't mind him. Kokrak, 7,400 DraftKings. Nobody will play him at that price, but I think that makes him a good GPP play. 3 top 30s in a row. He has 2 top 16s here. His game has been overall solid. I just like the way he lines up, but he's an inconsistent motherfucker. And, so I played him in cash, I think, at the Greenbrier, and this was after 2 weeks of really good ball striking performances. And I was just, if he turns the putter around, he'll be fine. And he didn't turn the putter around. In fact, he just fell off the cliff, and that really hurt me that week. So I'm going to be off the Kokrak. But on FanDuel, I will have some GPP exposure. 4,800 really lets you do a lot with your lineup. I can't play him in cash just because my ideal goal is 8 of 8, and I think he really hinders the chances of me getting 8 of 8. So there's that. His odds doesn't really reflect that the betting public has much faith in him getting the job done either. So I'll stay away. Patrick Cantlay. Everyone's darling, in cash on both sites. I love him this week. He is a monster tee to green. He led the field in greens in regulation last week, and he went here. Well, not the law school where I go, but he went to UCLA. I'm going to ride my boy, Patrick Cantlay, this week. Looks like a serial killer, especially when he puts all the sunscreen on. He lathers that shit on there. Doesn't really rub it in either. Just kind of turns into the pasty white ghost. And yeah, he's a creepy looking guy, but he'll get the job done. And I have a lot of faith in Patrick Cantlay this week. After a ball striking clinic last week, scores really well on par 5s and par 4s. He's just a world class player that I think just needs to get the breakthrough. Could come this week after a really good performance last week. I think he lost 2.5 strokes putting. If he turns that around, he's winning. He's getting close. Tony Finau, everyone's darling. Really terrible Sunday last week, and that hurt me too. Dropped me out of some DraftKings cash. So yeah, thanks Tony. And DraftKings, what is up with this price? Make Tony Finau 7,700 for fuck's sake. Why is he down here? I get it with Cantlay. He doesn't have the sample size, he doesn't have history. But, if you're on a ball-striking course, you want Tony Finau. He just can't putt. That's fine. We get that. And even last week, he was fine Thursday, Friday, Saturday, putting Sunday, approach Sunday. Those two were the ones that fell off because I looked at the round-by-round stats. Sunday, he just fell off a cliff. He hit into a lot of shit. I don't know what was up with him. I know he stayed up late watching the fight on the East Coast. Maybe a lot of these guys went to bed. Maybe all of them watched the fight. I don't know. But Finau just didn't look right on Sunday. He sucked. It was a bad performance for Finau, and honestly, I think I'm going to try to find the $100 for Cantlay wherever I can this week. And at FanDuel 8K, I'm just going to fade him again. Despite his popularity on DraftKings, people refuse to pay that price for Finau on FanDuel, and I will too. Russell Knox, good history here. I won't be playing him. Zach Johnson, decent history here, but I also won't be playing him just because of the run of form that he's been on, which has been not that good, some would say. Zach Johnson, just kind of show you where he's at statistically right now. Bridgestone, obviously, putting, that's an outlier. 9 strokes putting, that is, yeah. I mean, when Zach Johnson has these performances with the putter, he wins, and that's just kind of how it is. So I'll let that slide. Pretend that didn't happen. But basically, outside of that, putted really well at the Open, too. He actually just played really well at the Open. Then the John Deere, which is just like his child. He hasn't really done much else, and maybe he finishes 30th this week, but I don't really love counting on that with the way he's been playing. I like Johnny Vegas a lot. One time here, Johnny Vegas, 33rd. He just has been really hot recently, miscut at the PGA, fine by me, tough course, ate a lot of guys up. But just the way Johnny Vegas has been scoring recently, I love Johnny Vegas this week. 7K on DraftKings is a little tough for me in cash just because of how volatile we know he can be. And so I like Johnny Vegas in cash a lot at 5,500 on FanDuel. He kind of will be the bottom end for me. Normally I don't go below 6K, but this is one of those times where he's been so good recently in every area of his game, by the way. Normally, he's an inconsistent guy in kind of different areas, but I really like Vegas this week. These playoffs, he seems to turn it around. He turned it around last year. He's turned it around this year, too. I really like Johnny Vegas this week, and I'll be playing him in cash. Probably only on FanDuel, but I will definitely have exposure on DraftKings. I don't know what I'm going to do with him yet, though. I may just bite the bullet and play him, but we'll see. His upside is definitely there. Mark Leishman, a guy that decent history here, not great off the tee, and that really holds him back. His approach game has been good recently, but his putting has been bad. And even his approach game kind of been falling off over the last few weeks. So I'm not really sold on the leash. The price tag is good and the odds are good. I think the odds are just so good because of his consistency overall this year, but the recent form worries me. So there's that. These are some kind of the lineup combinations I'm looking at this week. I'd prefer if you didn't play those. Yeah, I'm going to black those out. But, Molinari, another guy that I really put my trust in last week, he burned me, has not played this course in the last 5 years. I don't know if he's played it before that. I don't really give a fuck. Just the way he played last week, not good. Just kind of sputtered in every area of his game, and I don't like to see that. Stats are still there because of how he was playing the 2 weeks prior, but I don't really see the need to hop back on the guy, when I could just play Cantlay, and Cantlay's been hot, at that price on FanDuel and then DraftKings. I'd rather play this next guy, Xander. I'd rather play Xander, honestly, than Molinari this week. Xander's been showing up in these tough field events pretty much all year. Didn't really have a good PGA, but that's understandable. Quail Hollow was bad for a lot of people. But every area of his game right now, off the tee approach, putting, he's been fine. Xander's performance, I was reading the Searching for a Specialist on Roto Grinders. Xander's putting on bent grass. He gained many more strokes putting on bent grass compared to any other surface. Xander in the summer, better than on any other season. Xander's performance in strong field events, better than anyone else, pretty much this year. Really bad run to start his career off, but look at this form recently. I mean, starting with that fifth at the U.S. Open, people just played him there for a made cut, and he ended up fifth. What did we know about Aaron Hills? Ball striking. What did I think would be key at the Greenbrier? Ball striking. Quicken Loans, ball striking. All places where Xander's shown up. Bridgestone, Xander showed up. Bridgestone, very tough course, very, very strong event. And sure, the PGA didn't do so well, but that's his irons went away for a week. They came back last week. That's what I like to see. I'm gonna ride Xander this week. Both sites, I really like him. 6,900, 6,100. I like him just as much as Finau, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Just the way that Xander's kind of overall game sets up, I like. Finau, if Finau has like another terrible putting week and an average approach week, like doesn't gain or lose strokes to the field, Finau's in trouble because Finau's bad putting weeks are bad, like bad. And Finau's around the green bad weeks are bad. So, for me, it's like I could save the money and get Xander and then, find if I wanted to go Charlie over Rose, I could do that. And I really like doing that this week just because of what Charlie showed me here in the past. You can go Xander in Vegas and then get some of these studs at the top. So I really like that approach this week as well. Ian Poulter, I was riding him for a while, but the wheels have fallen off the wagon on Ian Poulter. Still first in putting over the last 12 rounds, but that was because of a 10 strokes gained putting round, which is absurd, and like a 7 strokes gained putting round or tournament, which is also absurd. So I don't see Ian Poulter doing too well here. I see him maybe finishing like 50th or a miscut. Kevin Na performed well here in the past. I don't hate the Kevin Na play, but for $100 more, play Xander. Chris Kirk, really good history here. He has a win and basically doesn't finish outside the top 30, but Chris Kirk has been Chris Kirk, this is like the epitome of Chris Kirk for me because I've seen him have like decent history in a lot of tournaments throughout this year, and I've just been like, well, he's been shit this year. I'm not going to play him. And it hasn't burned me because he's been literally so bad this year. And this is another one of those weeks where I'm just like, Chris Kirk has good history, but he's been so bad this year that I'm just not going to play him. James Hahn, ball striking course, you can take a shot on James Hahn this week. I wouldn't hate you for it, but if I'm taking shots on guys, on FanDuel especially, it's going to be Varner, who's coming in hot. Varner tends to be a streaky guy. He played well here last year. I don't have the history. He was kind of like a late addition to my sheet. Just a guy I overlooked. But I like Varner. You could take. I'm not going to play Varner in cash by any means, but he's a GPP guy. I think he can make the cut and save you some salary. He could also fall off. He's a Kokrak. What do you want? So Varner to me is just kind of there. Good GPP play just to save you salary. I'm not sure what his DK price is. Didn't add it, but yeah. So that's pretty much it this week. I don't mind a shot on Robert Streb. He lines up pretty well, just from what I think about Robert Streb being as a golfer. And if I want to get into some Euro talk here real quick, so I was looking at like 40 guys in Euro, and you can take a screenshot of this, but do they have history here? Yes. Do they have current form? No. Odds, salary. So some of my favorite plays would be Donaldson has history and he's in form. Surrey doesn't have history, but he's coming off a win, and I like that. Dash is basically meh. Like, they don't have bad history. They don't have good history. They don't have bad form. They don't have great form. They don't no top tens really. So Surrey killing it. Detry Detry is coming in hot. I really like Detry this week. Detry's probably my favorite play. Rye, really good form. Barnrat, all right. Hebert, bad history here. Or decent history, excuse me. I think he's a miscut in like 2014. That's why I didn't really hold it against him, but I didn't count anything for him. Form, though, Hebert, really good recently. Parator, late withdrawal last week. I think he's injured. I don't really know what to do with him. I'd rather just play Lipsky. Pepperell, decent form, decent history. Chester's really good form, but he kind of trailed off a little last week, so I don't know about him. Maybe a 30th place. Fratelli, class golfer this year, but I think I'm done with him right now. Shinkwin was a popular guy for the British, given his performances on links leading up to that. I'm going to be off him this week. Evans, stellar history and very good form leading in. Evans is also one of my core plays this week. I would start Detry, Rye, Surrey, Evans, kind of those guys I really like this week. At the top, I would go Jordan Smith. He's been playing really well, showed up at the PGA, where even Peters couldn't keep his hot form up. So I really like Smith. He's my pick to win. Detry would be my second pick to win. Lipsky seems like a safe play. I don't know about his win equity. Surrey and Rye, I think, are due for wins. Evans could pull out a win here. Ormsby has been hot as fuck. I like Ormsby this week. I like Porteous this week. He's been really hot as well on his, I guess, Sunshine Tour or Challenge Tour, whichever one he's been on. He's been doing really well. Slattery's been all right. Bordy has good history, not good form. Wallace has good form, but not great history. Or really no history, actually. And even Wallace just had a good performance last week, so I don't love him overall. Burmester is a GPP-only play. I just know he's a quality golfer. Could show up and perform really well here. Waring, sure. Dredge fucked me last week out of some pretty good money because I had Surrey. Yeah. Connolly was hot. Now he's not. Lewis has been solid recently. He has decent history, but he's in good form. I really like that Lewis play this week. 7,500 seems a fair price for him. The rest of these guys, Van Rooyen's been hot on his lower tour, so you could take a shot on him. Bjork has been pretty consistent. Not the best form recently. He's just kind of been there. I think I would rather play Daniel Im, who's made 2 of 3 cuts here and has been making some cuts recently at 6,600. I think he's a great value play. Peterson won here last year, so he'll probably get some ownership at 7,100, but he's really in not good form right now. This guy Boyd at 6,500 has stellar history here, but isn't in any sort of form. And this guy, Craig Lee, I think his name is, also very good form, or very good history, but really no form. So these are kind of my Euro guys. I haven't updated these odds, but if I see any I like, I'll just tweet them out at mandrews93dfs. And like I said with this, especially with the Euro, don't go crazy with it. These are just kind of, I don't have stats really for Euro. I don't go off of rolling stats. I just look at history, form, odds, and salary. I really couldn't tell you if any of these guys are bombers except for like Peters. I couldn't tell you really how any of these guys play. If they rely on short game, that's not my game for Euro. My game for Euro is just to try to find a combination of history and form and get the right guys. But even that doesn't work. Like, Euro really confuses me. I think it's just the quality of player is overall watered down, but yet, like, someone needs to come in 5th, but, like, the consistency is not there for a lot of these guys, and it could fall off at any given time, like we saw with Stern last week, who came in hot, had great history, and then just blew up. Dredge, same thing. Good history, or stellar history. Decent form, just blew up. And, if those two guys do well, sure they were chalky, but I had Surrey. Surrey wasn't so chalky. Chester's wasn't so chalky. Lewis wasn't so chalky. So, if those two guys make the cut, I'm getting more points, and I'm probably doing really, really well in GPPs. I cashed cash even with 4 of 6. Thanks, Surrey. Oh yeah, that. But yeah, I'm just gonna play these small GPPs until I really figure it out with Euro. So, but yeah, my core for Euro would be Detry, Lipsky, Evans, and I really like Surrey too. I'll bold him. Porteous has been really good on his lower tour, but I've played him before in these European Tour events. He hasn't been great. So take that for what it's worth. But I like him as a value play. Bjork is going to be popular at 7,100. I really like riding Lewis again. He's been fine. Dredge, I don't know about him, man. He just really hurt me last week. He could find it again. I don't know. Worth a shot. He's a world-class player for this kind of field, and the odds reflect it. So wouldn't hate it, but I don't really love it. But yeah, those are kind of my guys this week. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you next week. And I'll be on Twitter doing the live updates, kind of tweeting things, tilting, of course. Not adding players who withdraw. Don't do that. Don't add players. Don't do that. It's bad form. But yeah, I'll see you next week, and best of luck.